The Garamantes were a desert kingdom that flourished in the central Sahara during the era of the Roman Empire. Likely descended from Saharan nomads who settled down around the oases that dotted the massive desert, they were often dismissed as little more than marauding barbarians by their Mediterranean neighbors. This was a stereotype believed until relatively recently. However, new archaeological finds have proven the Garamantes to be a technologically advanced kingdom very much on par with its contemporaries. There are even Roman documents that imply that the Garamantes were in fact a developed and powerful kingdom. David Mattingly writes in The Archaeology of Fezzan, several snippets of information in our literary sources suggest that the Garamantes were not quite the nomadic barbarians they have often been taken for. They were a populous people, according to several ancient historians, whose major settlements were evidently of urban or proto-urban character. Garama was described as the Garamantian capital and as a metropolis of the tribe, and several other sites are referred to specifically as oppida, Latin for town. Herodotus mentioned both agricultural and pastoral practices among the Garamantes. Clearly, the Garamantes were more advanced than many of the ancient sources would like to admit. It is clear from the archaeological record that the Garamantes built cities, mastered advanced irrigation, and controlled a trade network that linked Rome to sub-Saharan Africa, all while living in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Far from being marginal nomads, the Garamantes were a powerful and sophisticated society whose story forces us to rethink what was possible in the ancient Sahara. Thousands of years before the time of the Garamantes, between roughly 10,000 and 3000 BC, the Sahara experienced what is known as the African humid period. During this time, the region was a fertile savanna rather than a desert, receiving 20 to 40 inches of rainfall per year. This water accumulated underground and formed massive reservoirs called aquifers. Thousands of years later, the Garamantes were able to tap into these aquifers using a tunneling system known as the foggara. This technology was first developed in Persia, where it was called a qanat, and gradually spread across the ancient world, reaching as far east as China and as far west as North Africa. The Garamantes appear to have learned of it through trade with Egypt around the 5th century BC. This newfound knowledge marked the beginning of the Garamantian civilization. Constructing a foggara began with identifying places where the water table rose higher than the surrounding ground level, often beneath mountains and dried-out river valleys known as wadis. The Garamantes would dig a well at such sites and then carve a long, gently sloping tunnel, sometimes extending from half a mile to as much as 3 miles, that carried the water directly to their villages and cities. To make construction and maintenance possible, workers dug vertical shafts at regular intervals, allowing access for hauling out soil, circulating air, and checking the tunnel's gradient. Though the slope was slight, sometimes only a meter of drop over hundreds of meters, it was sufficient for gravity to carry the water steadily along. At the tunnel's end, the water emerged above ground and was guided through channels to irrigate crops. The foggaras stand as remarkable feats of engineering. Archaeologists have identified at least 650 of them, with a combined length of roughly 3,000 miles. Thanks to these systems, the Garamantes were able to cultivate an astonishing variety of crops, including wheat, grapes, figs, dates, celery, cotton, and olives. They also raised livestock such as cattle, sheep, and pigs. The foggaras were foundational to the Garamantian kingdom, enabling them to create oasis cities in the middle of the Sahara. They made possible an immense population increase not seen again in the Sahara until the 20th century. The foggaras allowed the Garamantes to create thriving farmland out of barren desert and to build vibrant cities that became hubs of economic and cultural activity. The primary area where these foggaras are found is in the Wadi al-Ajal, which formed the heartland of the Garamantian kingdom. But the kingdom extended far beyond this wadi. At the height of its power in AD 150, the kingdom stretched a massive 70,000 square miles. Archaeologists estimate that the capital, Garama, had 4,000 people in the city proper and another 6,000 in surrounding areas. The kingdom as a whole could have had as many as 100,000 people total. It is clear from the ancient sources that the Garamantes were a monarchy, and we can see from the extravagance of some of the tombs that there was a clear social hierarchy in Garamantian society. The tombs also reveal another interesting fact. It seems that the kingdom was quite diverse, including people from Berber, Mediterranean, and also sub-Saharan populations. Some tombs show resemblance to Roman mausoleums, while others are similar to Egyptian mastaba pyramids, clear evidence of the diversity of the Garamantian kingdom. The ancient sources themselves attest to this, describing the Garamantes as being composed of a diversity of ethnicities. The Garamantes produced a wide range of goods and resources, demonstrating advanced pyrotechnic skills in the form of iron and copper metallurgy, ceramics, and glass making. Salt also appears to have been collected in large quantities from salt flats known as sabkha. These salt production efforts were well managed and efficiently executed. The Garamantes were able to harvest the salt from these flats and turn them into a valuable economic commodity. Arguably, the Garamantes' most significant industry was the processing of semi-precious stones into jewelry. The Garamantes dealt with two stones in particular, red carnelian and turquoise amazonite. The production of these goods not only showcases the Garamantes' technical skill and resource management, but also laid the foundation for their role in regional commerce. The Garamantian economy was further bolstered by their location at the crossroads of major trans-Saharan routes, allowing them to dominate the flow of goods between the Mediterranean and sub-Saharan Africa. Merchants crossing the Sahara primarily relied on two trade routes. The most frequently used was the Ghat route, which ran southwest to cities like Jenne-Jeno along the Niger River. The second, the Bornu route, led directly south to Lake Chad. Both routes passed through the Garamantian kingdom, effectively giving them a monopoly on trade between the Mediterranean and sub-Saharan Africa. The Garamantes exported surplus wheat, salt, and gemstones to their African trading partners, receiving rice, pearl millet, and sorghum in return. They also imported goods such as cotton clothing, leather, ivory, gold, and slaves. Among these exchanges, the slave trade was likely the most significant component of their commerce with sub-Saharan Africa. As mentioned earlier, the Garamantes dug approximately 3,000 miles of fogaras, requiring an estimated 72,000 man-years of labor to dig. Not only did the fogaras need to be dug, they also required constant maintenance. The Garamantes could not have accomplished this work without a massive amount of slave labor, which they acquired through both raiding and trading with sub-Saharan Africa. Given that slaves were necessary for the upkeep of the fogaras, the slave trade was thus essential to the existence of the Garamantian kingdom itself. The Garamantes also maintained extensive trade with the Roman Empire. Much of their export goods reached the coastal cities of Oya, Sabratha, and Leptis Magna, where Romans sought carnelian, amazonite, ivory, textiles, and gold. The Garamantes also occasionally assisted in capturing and transporting wild animals for Roman arenas as part of this trade. In exchange, they received wine, olive oil, pottery, glassware, cast bronze works, lamps, salted fish, and textiles. In short, the Garamantes were a powerful kingdom composed of a diverse population that occupied a uniquely strategic position in the Sahara. The expansion of the kingdom and the strategic position at the crossroads of trans-Saharan trade inevitably brought the Garamantes into conflict with Rome. This marks the conclusion of Part 1 of our exploration of the Garamantes. In Part 2, we'll investigate the Garamantes' relationship with the Roman Empire, as well as the decline and eventual collapse of the Garamantian kingdom. If you'd like to learn more about forgotten kingdoms of the past, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and take a look at our other videos.